right? And then that is your opportunity to actually ask them and then deal with objections. And then from there, if you have to go do follow-up, you can do follow-up. But if you're just sending proposals dry with like no context, not giving them an opportunity to ask questions, it's not a good buying experience. It's not a good customer experience.
When your leads are low and your sales are slow, who you gonna call? Brushbuster. Scaling up the game.
What's up, everyone? Mike and Jesse here for another episode of the Painter Growth Podcast, Brushbuster Edition. Did you guys miss us?
What's going on, everyone? It's stoked to be here.
It was fun meeting people at the expo last week and getting real feedback on the podcast. And seems like pretty like for a lot of people, the Brushbusters is their favorite series. So
That's awesome. Let's see what comes up today.
absolutely. So did you want to first chat for a couple of minutes about, we never really recap publicly about the Hormozi event. I mean, we talked during December and like the very start of January about the Skool games and all the craziness, hardest kind of month of our lives professionally. Should we just recap for a couple minutes on some takeaways that we got at the event?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I think it's interesting for people that have been following along here. Like the guy that created Skool, Sam Ovens, right? I took his course initially. He had a consulting course online in July of 2018. And then I think you signed up, was it December of 2018?
Yeah.
So seeing him and then Alex, who I think you've talked about this on before, his books have helped create the offers for Painter Growth and everything that we've done here. So having them both involved and then having the opportunity to meet them both in person at the same time. I don't know about you. I don't know if I fully even now have like reflected on like how cool that is, but it's pretty cool. Like that all aligned for that one moment to meet them both in person and whatnot.
And the very first training program I ever bought online that started my whole career in online business was Sam Ovens Consulting Accelerator for $19.99, $2,000 in December 2018.
Yeah, crazy.
Started everything.
So full circle. And I was telling Sam that because he had the Consulting Accelerator and then he had a private Slack channel, which we use Slack for our community and whatnot, for what would become Skool. And I was a part of that, and I was like directly messaging him, giving him feedback on it. His whole vision initially was to create a Facebook group, not on Facebook, so that people didn't have the distractions and whatnot. And that's actually what became Skool and what it is today. Now, whatever, $500+ million company, which is pretty wild to see that evolution.
And then the second big inflection point for my career in Painter Growth was reading Alex Hormozi's $100 million offers, which is the other guy who was there, other co-owner of Skool. And his $100 million offers allowed me to get the vision and the structure to create, what became the Painter Growth Blueprint and launch Painter Growth into what it is today. So I owe both of them a lot of credibility towards my success and roadmap, and I got to tell them that each in the same day.
Yeah, me too. Again, it's surreal to think. I think about how much influence, and it's funny too when you think about how much money we've paid those guys. Like pretty little in the grand scheme of things. To have that much influence and impact it's pretty cool to see what they've been able to do in their careers and how many people they've been able to influence and impact. That was one of my biggest takeaways. Actually, was they said, how to gain influence. If someone can take your material, make it actionable, and get results from it, you've started to gain influence. You've started to gain influence in that realm, and it's so obvious now if you reverse engineer that, and you can see why Sam, a long time ago now, he's not really in the public face anymore. He's kind of behind the scenes, but Sam had crazy influence over the whole online world for a long time as he was in there because his stuff was actionable and people got real world results from it. And now that's what Alex has become, where you can watch a 30 or 60 second reel on Instagram or wherever from Alex, and you apply it right away. I know you and I share his stuff all the time back and forth to each other, and we get real world results, within Painter Growth.
Even his tweets,
right? I shared a tweet with you yesterday, right? As I was going through something, right? I was saying like how, dealing with a little bit of overwhelm and how things have been a little bit hard with our scaling and what's been going on. And I think Alex sent out yesterday that he's been going through a period of a couple months where for 2 years it seemed like he was just unstoppable. And he used to talk about the seasons of life and seasons of business, which is funny. That's one thing that when we were there, being in the intuitive space and whatnot, I noticed his energy was like a little off from where it was normally. So then to see his tweet yesterday talking about how he's been going through a bit of a time, I found really interesting to then reflect back on what we experienced in Vegas. I don't know if you noticed that at all.
I'm less tuned into the energy than you, but yeah, maybe. He's super cool. Like just hanging out with him, and like seems like such a chill dude.
Totally.
When he's not getting fangirled by by all the 20-something entrepreneurs there.
Speaking of that, though, wasn't it weird that we were two of like the older guys there?
Yeah.
That was a shock to the system. We're like the only
one person older than me.
There's one person older, but we were in the rare group of both being married with kids. That was weird.
yeah, like having kids at the school games thing, and that just kind of speaks to the school games audience. I think at the Hormozi workshop, there's a lot more older people there with more established businesses, whereas the school games thing is like kind of attracts the younger demo, I think.
Yeah. What were your top takeaways from the actual Q&A that they did?
So I did an episode on this a couple of weeks ago here, but the main takeaways, number one, the value of the personal brand and social media. And I think this applies to trades businesses too, definitely applies to our business. So the ability, even if you think about a painting business like Idaho Painter or ZK Painting or Moose Painting, like all of these companies operate almost completely on or generate almost all of their clients through social media. Like when I talked to Chris, Idaho Painter, last week at the expo, he built his company through his YouTube channel, was painting and doing like a really solid business. And they had the biggest wait list ever. And they just could not scale their labor fast enough because they had such an overwhelming demand because he had this like online presence that he built over time. And same with ZK Painting. I don't think he spends a penny on marketing because he has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and he gets a whole bunch of inbound inquirers through there. He just shows his work. So what I kind of foresee for Painter Growth is, if we can build our Instagram to 100,000 followers by the end of this year, and just like everyone listening, like watch our Instagram, it's going to completely blow up. The amount of content, the quality of the content, the value in our content, all of that is going to completely blow up over the next few months. And with the hope, hired a really expensive social media coach to help me solve that. When you and I figure out problems that we want to solve in the business, the first thing that we do is like, can we solve it on our own? Yes, no. If it's no, then let's hire a coach.
That was part of my big takeaway too when thinking about problems more linearly. One of my favorite things that he said, and excuse my language here, but Hormozi said, some shit's just gonna stay fucked, and you got to be okay with that. And he's like, yeah, there's a million things. When they're talking about the context of Skool that he invested in the platform, he's like, yeah, there's a million things that we want to do, and some shit's gonna stay, F. And you got to be okay with that. And he's now thinking a lot more linearly, right? If we solve this one problem, what of those other million problems start to go away? And really ruthlessly prioritizing that in our business and for all the painting business owners listening right now. It's like, if you could solve that one thing, if you could create that marketing system that consistently got you 20 leads a week or whatever was in alignment with your business plan, what would that totally eliminate off your schedule right now? Right? Like that's the one unlock. So that was a really big one for me. And then the other one, when he talked about brand and creation and whatnot, I think people will hear this and then immediately might want to start posting on social media and creating that brand, like the Idaho Painter and the ZK Painting and whatnot. But the thing that Alex talked a lot about was it's just way more time has to play out for that to actually be the case, right? Think about how long has Idaho Painter been doing this content for? Like 15 years?
12 years.
12 years. Yeah. So like 12 years, of course, you've seen those results and whatnot, because there's, if there's 100 painting business owners that try to do that play, 99.5 of them are not going to keep doing it over the long haul, right?
For sure. And it's just consistency, right? It's just consistency. Yeah. Quality will come over time. Yeah. Can you post something valuable every single day? Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about painting and like the painting trade is that it is visually eye-catching. It's not like plumbing or electrical or something where it like doesn't look as nice. Like we create beautiful things. Just like capture that on a daily basis, post it, write a little caption, and it doesn't have to blow up, right? Just people in your city have to see it.
Yeah, I love that. The other takeaway to share too from that was when Alex was hanging out with some of the top YouTube guys, Mr. Beast and those guys, and they said, "Alex, how long is your brief for a video?" And Alex is like, "A brief? What do you mean?" And they're like, "Yeah, brief for like what you're going to talk about in the video and whatnot." And Alex is like, I kind of have my videographer guy just click record and I just start talking." And he's like, "How long is your brief?" And the one guy, it wasn't Mr. Beast, but it was another guy, said like 35 pages. And Alex is like, "Oh, okay." And then for Mr. Beast, I think he said that they have their brief of however many pages. Then they actually will record the entire video in like low quality and whatnot to see if they're actually going to do the video and like that level of detail. And when he was talking about playing a professional level of game, like, I mean, Alex is everywhere from our perspective on social media and content, and he's not even near the level of these professionals in that specific field on YouTube and whatnot. So what I got from that was just going like what it takes to actually be great at what you're doing and in your field. And, in the context of building pain and growth, like we've been talking about a lot about this lately, is like going from good to great and like great work. And it's literally just going way deeper and looking at things from a totally different level of depth. That was really big for me.
Being okay with something that's good enough. Like a lot of the times, if we apply this to painting, an interior paint job can totally be good enough. I was even talking to ZK Painting about this. When he goes and quotes a home, if you guys know him on Instagram, he does like these high-end hyper gloss ceilings and walls and like incredible like $100,000 paint jobs, right? And so he'll go to a customer's home and like start talking about the project, and he'll just like ask like, "What level of finish do you want?" It's like, "Do you want your door to look like a mirror?" Because like we can do that. It's going to take 200 hours and it's going to cost you $50,000, but we can do this to your door. Or do you want it to be like 80% of the way there? Because then it's only going to be 10 grand, right? And like that 80% is going to be good enough for most people. But like Alex said, I think as you were going on this like YouTube briefing thing, he's like, there's no secret formula to YouTube or Instagram. There's no way to beat the algorithm. You just have to do way more work. Right? Like I mentioned to you yesterday, the difference between good and great is an order of magnitude. Just 10 times more work, 10 times more effort, and you can make something good, great. But if you're not willing to put in that effort, then like his book, $100 million offers and $100 million sale leads. He's like, I could have released something good. And then I could have marketed the shit out of it and we could have sold a bunch of copies. But now I spent the extra time, I made something great, and he doesn't have to market it, right? It sells 10,000 copies a week or whatever it is by word of mouth because everyone who reads it was like, damn, that's good.
Yeah, it's interesting in the context of like growing on social media and whatnot too, when there is like a volume game, and it's like you have to do more to become better, but then there's an element of you can only do so much more before your growth stalls, and then you do have to do better. But most of the time, most people, the other thing we learned is that you can do way more first than you think, like way more, right? The order more, better, new. So if you apply that to your painting company right now, it's just like, what is working right now that if you just did more of, you'd get way better results, right? Is direct mail working? Just do way more of it. Don't do better. Don't do new. Just do way more of it, and you'll get better results. I think that's been part of our theme in Paint and Growth this year too, is where we went wrong in some planning at the end of 2024 was so many of our initiatives were under new, but this year it's more, better, then maybe we'll discuss new.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year was more, and we had ideas to do new, and we didn't do it. Yeah. And I think this year is better. Everything that we're doing, like we're hiring, someone to become a head of marketing, right? We're investing in social media coaches, like $6,000 a month into that. We're bringing on new video editors. We're bringing on more consultants, like higher level team, $250,000 a year employees, right? So it's all about like, and all of this to be said without a single new product, right? No new specific offer. It's just, how can we do what we're already doing, but like 10 times better, so we can move from this like good realm, which, I feel like we get pretty good results. Some of our clients get great results, but we want all of our clients to get great results. And that again is that order of magnitude.
And that's from the sales and marketing side. And then on the product, like I said, no really new products or anything, just making them significantly better on that back end, right? With the investments, the coaches and the training and whatnot. But yeah, it's a really good framework and I think the thing that I always get from going to these events or seeing those guys is I love how they can simplify concepts into a couple words that make a huge impact, right? Like, you can take something super complex and then simplify. And I think that's always a level of expertise to strive towards is, can you summarize it in a few words or a line? And if you do, you know it well enough. And if you don't, you just don't know it well enough yet. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically the teaching level, like, can you teach it to someone? And and then it goes back to a concept that we've talked a lot about, and we actually learned from Chad back in the day, right? The difference between recognition and understanding, right? So a lot of people here, even listening to this, like, you recognize some of the things we talk about. You recognize that you need good recruiting. You recognize that you need to do direct mail, and you recognize you need to scale a door-to-door team, but you might not have the true understanding of how to do that, the nuts and bolts, the step-by-step. And that is like, people come into our training and be like, oh yeah, I recognize all these things, therefore I don't need to learn them, right? I know more than you. It's like, okay, if you knew more than us and you truly understood these things, why isn't your business bigger? Why isn't your business where you want it to be?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. I'd never want to play the Skool games again.
Well, they did change the rules, so based on the adjustment of the rules, maybe. But how it was set up last year, absolutely not.
I do want to say that although we got second overall in the Skool games, we are the only, and in the last month, the previous month, the people who got first, second, third, and the previous month before that, we are now, everyone else has lost all their clients, and we still have all of ours, most of ours. Yeah. So we actually brought on clients who we're able to deliver to, and we provided real value to, who want to stick around. Whereas like the guys who beat us, they were at like 200K and now they're below 50K. So like 3/4 of the people that they sold didn't continue because they're so young at business. They just know how to sell. And they made this crazy offer and they got a whole bunch of sales, but nobody had any money to pay a second month because they weren't able to put that money back in their pockets. They didn't deliver. So people can put up big numbers short term, but like, truly, can you keep clients for a long time?
Which is how they revamped the games this year, way more around like 90 days, and retention is way more in alignment with that, of actually making offers that are valuable to people and get results and doing that thing. So I think they did a really good job of revamping that, because it was starting to become this crazy pump and dump. Basically, people just like pumped it like crazy, and then the next month they they dump and whatnot. And that was one thing we talked about a lot during it, was how do we do this in as high of integrity as we can. And that's something I'm really proud of us for doing the entire time during that competing. Was doing that. So
yeah, I mean, we didn't win, but it sure helped the business a lot, and we brought on a ton of amazing customers who we love working with, and it ended up being net good.
Yeah, good, 100%. Should we hop into some letters and solve some problems?
Let's do it. So I got a letter here from Emily. I'll start with this first one. So I can't tell you, dear Brush Busters, I can't tell you how frustrating it is to spend hours preparing a detailed proposal only for the client to stop responding altogether. This happens to me more often than I'd like, and I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or it's just part of the business. How do you handle clients who just ghost after receiving a proposal? Is there a way to bring them back on the table, or should I just move on? Good one. You want to start?
Yeah, I think one of the first questions I ask when people do onboard to Painter Growth is, who here has ever, spent 2 hours with a customer, you built great rapport with them, you talked with their kids, their dog, then you went home later on, you typed up the quote, you send it to them, and then you never hear from them again. And pretty much everybody's hand raises every time. Everybody's had that experience, right? So one of the first things I would say, Emily, is are you pitching them on the spot? Right? Are you actually delivering the proposal right then and there when you're doing your sale? If not, you're just missing a huge amount of opportunity. Most contractors do what I said in the first scenario there, right? They'll get the numbers, email it over. Well, I shouldn't say all, most of them. A lot of them will still do handwritten notes and not in nothing formal at all. Next level would be, having some professional software where you do email it over. Level 3 is you have that professional software email, but you actually take the time and go over it with them on the spot. The reasons why I like to say that, and when I say pitch on the spot, I don't love that tough
Present on the spot.
Presenting on the spot is way better. Yeah, good one. So why do you present on the spot? Because you're actually doing a way higher level of service for that client right then and there. You actually take the time to go over the proposal, because there's so many little details that go into a paying job. And if you don't get it right, and you're not showing that you have a common, one of the C's, common sense of purpose, you're solving what they're showing you and going over each step of the proposal, then you don't know if you emailed it over to them, if there's discrepancies, or if you haven't hit the nail on the head. But when you're going over it with them on the person, you say, hey, this is everything in terms of the prep. Is that what you're looking for? And they say, yes. Hey, here's everything in terms of the scope of the job. And you break it down in detail. And they say, okay, great. This is what's excluded. Is that right? And they say, yes. Then you go over specifics of the job and the timeline and all those little nitty gritty details. You know that the customer's actually on board. And then if it feels right, if it feels appropriate, then you can say, great, can we, it's going to be $10,000. Can we get you scheduled in onto our calendar? Now that'll eliminate ghosting right away, because now you've actually presented. So no one has technically, ghosted you at that point if you're presenting on the spot. That's the first part of the equation. Do you want to go over the second piece?
Before that, I want to something that just came to mind is like when you get that money. So absolutely, you need to present on the spot. And I think that was you that told me you dealt with this one client this way. It's like you present as like, hey, this is a $10,000 project. We're gonna take a 20% deposit. That's gonna be $2,000. How'd you like to handle that? It's like, wow, if you get the objection, well, that's a lot of money. That's a lot more money than I thought it was gonna be. Right. Instead of responding to it and be like, oh, okay, I'll give you a discount. How much do you want? But you just like look them in the eye and be like, it's a big job.
Good idea. Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, you tell the story.
All right. So I was quoting this job, and it was the middle of January. It was January 2023, and it was an interior job. It was a previous client. We painted the exterior the previous summer, so we had the great rapport and whatnot. But it was the main floor of the house. It's a really big house, but we're doing the walls, the ceilings, the trim, the doors, everything. And I'm looking at it, and it's pretty wide open concept, but there's like 100 pot lights in the ceiling, and just that alone. And I was like, oh, this is going to be way more than this customer's thinking. Like, I know that. So the whole time I'm going around, I am like demonstrating how much work this is going to be, the basket, the taping, the preparation, everything that's involved, just trying to build as much value as I can. But I know, I could get a feel from him because I worked with him in the past. He was probably expecting between 10 and 12,000. So I ran my numbers. I got in my truck, and it's 19,700. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, these are my numbers to hit the margin and whatnot. I gave, and that was even factoring in a bit of a discount because he's a previous client. So I go back in there. I'm sitting with him and his wife, and we're at the kitchen table, right? And I went over the process exactly like I just described, each step by step. And I said, right, it's going to be 19,700 plus GST. Can we get you guys scheduled then? And I just sat there in complete silence. And he looks over at his wife. They look at each other. He looks back at me and goes, wow, it's considerably more than we thought it was going to be. And then that's when I just looked at him and I said, yeah, it's a really big job. And then I just stopped talking. And he looked back at his wife again. We looked at each other, and they said, well, we really want to get it done. So yeah, we'll get scheduled in. And it was like, so the lesson in there, and what we've talked about a lot is like, once you ask for the job, your job of everything you've done leading up to that moment is now completed. And after you ask for the job, actually you want to say as little as possible. Because what can happen is you can start to talk yourself out of the job, kind of like what you just said there. But as soon as I've asked for the job, it's like there's literally nothing else that I can do. It's now up to them to make that decision. And I'm just trying to stay out of the way as best I can.
I mean, for like back to Emily, like bringing this full circle. Yeah, like you said, the first thing is following a good sales process. So doing a good setup call, thorough estimate, showing up exactly on time, being professional, going to your vehicle to write up the numbers, coming back in, presenting on the spot a professional proposal with a digital, proposal software like Drip Jobs or something. Going through it line by line. Here's what the prep looks like. Here's what the cleanup looks like. Here's the products that we're using. Here's how many coats we did on everything. Here's what's included. Here's what's not included. Does this fit? And then going into your trial close, right? Is there anything missing in this proposal? Do you feel like we're going to do a good job? Do you trust that we're going to do a good job? Like, is this something that you want to do? Can we hit your timeline? Great. So the way that we, do you want us to do this work for you? Like before you even tell them the price, like, do you want us to do this for you? Great. Well, so the price is $20,000, $19,421 to book you in and take a 20% deposit. That's going to come to $4,081. How would you like to handle that? Right. And then that is your opportunity to actually ask them and then deal with objections. And then from there, if you have to go do follow up, you can do follow up. But if you're just sending proposals dry with like no context, not giving them an opportunity to ask questions, it's not a good buying experience. It's not a good customer experience. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not pushy. It's not sales. You don't have to like push hard, but it's like it's giving if a client's making a $20,000 purchasing decision. You're not making this decision over email. You need to make this decision in person with the person so you can ask questions and you can have all of these concerns answered. It's respectful.
Yeah. And listen, if we go by the data, sure, there might be 10% of all clients that would be comfortable making that decision via email and whatnot. But that's not what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about like the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people are going to want that sit down experience and whatnot. So
yeah.
Now taking this a step further, let's assume Emily's doing all that, right? Let's just give her the benefit of the doubt that she's doing all that. Let's say that she's getting ghosted in the follow-up after. What would you say to her in that case?
I mean, if she's getting ghosted in the follow-up, I mean, you should be following up like pretty quickly, having some, text messages, some emails going out to build value and continue that rapport and the expertise. There's some funny text messages that you can send as like tactical things to get people to respond. One thing that I like, a couple strategies is like you can send memes to people, even if they're like older people, you can still text them a meme. One of my favorite ones is like the who's that? The Pablo Escobar one when he's sitting on the swing and sitting on the bench and just like waiting for your reply or something. Or one that like I really like is like a last ditch effort. If I've tried everything and I just need these people to respond, they don't answer my calls, they're not replying to my texts, and it's like I'm giving up on this job. I'm gonna give it one last try. A simple text. Actually, I'm gonna do this one. Then I'm gonna do the more tactful one. This one, the simple text is, "Did you die?" ?
I never heard that one.
We've done that multiple times. Always good to laugh. Or you can do like the crossbones emoji or just like the laughing emoji. But the more tactful one, the one that I learned from Cole Gordon, who's an incredible sales trainer in the online space, is working with us. How does it go? Is working with us off the table? Since I haven't heard back from you, I'm assuming you're no longer interested in working with us.
Yeah.
And just like a statement, not like, oh, please get back to me. It's like, since I haven't heard from you, I'm going to close your file, basically. Yeah. And that, if they are interested at all, maybe they're busy, maybe they've had like appointments, they were traveling or whatever, like that can happen. People with money are busy. Yeah. So that might just like, if they are interested, if there's any shred of hope that could bring them back to.
Yeah, I love all that. I think that's all that stuff is even more advanced than what I was thinking. What I was thinking is one of my coaches told me a super valuable metric, which is what happens after 48 hours of the quote.
Deals cool off.
Yeah, like they actually forget you came. So you literally have 48 hours after you present on the spot to the time that you might have thought you gave the performance of your lifetime, talking about their kids, their dogs, their golf clubs, whatever. And 48 hours later, it's, they're on to the next thing in their life. They might be able to think about the next project already, whatever it is going on. Everybody's busy and whatnot. But that was one of the most valuable pieces that one of my mentors gave me. He was like, hey, after 48 hours, the odds that you book this job are super, super low, right? So the question that I always ask, if we're at the quote and I can't overcome whatever objection there is, I use one line that completely changes for me, and it's one word. This word changed everything in my follow-up process. Okay, this word is, what would be a reasonable amount of time for you guys to discuss X? And the word reasonable completely shifted this for me. Because before I did this, and I would say, okay, well, how much time do you guys need to discuss your budget? Or how much time do you guys need to discuss whatever the objection was, right? That I couldn't overcome. And then generally say, oh yeah, give us a month or two, right? But as soon as I shifted the word, hey, what's a reasonable amount of time for you guys to actually sit down and discuss your budget? People never said more than a day or two. right? And that changed everything. I'm like, okay, great. So how about I call you at 3 p.m. tomorrow? Yeah, that works. Great. Now I have that follow-up called on the schedule. And then what do I do exactly at 3 p.m.? I call them right at 3 p.m. because it shows that I can deliver my promise. Not 3:01, not 3:02, 3 p.m. I called them right at that time. Hey, it's Jesse following up from our quote yesterday. Do you guys have a chance to discuss the budget? Oh, yeah, we did. Right, great. You guys have any other questions? You want to get scheduled in? That's the first and most important follow-up. And that will probably book you 90% more deals if you just do that one thing alone. You deploy that one word, which is reasonable. What's a reasonable amount of time for you guys to discuss X? That changed everything for us. Then the next thing is try to make that first follow-up. You can't do it within 48 hours for whatever reason, like max 7 days. Do not, you can blame it on whatever you need to do. Be like, if someone says, yeah, a month or two, hey, the process that our company actually has is a week max, because there's little details that come up and whatnot. So how about I call you at 3 p.m. next Saturday? A week max, right? Then after that, if they don't respond on that first follow-up, I am calling or texting every day or every 2 days, kind of depending on the client, until I get an answer. I've looked back at some jobs that I've done, and I've had 19 messages or 19 actions before someone has gotten back. Hey, sorry, I was busy. I do want to go ahead with it. But most people give up after like 1 or 2 tries, and they say, oh, the person's ghosting me, right? 80% of all sales do happen between the 5th and the 12th follow-up. And I've, data from a CRM that actually shows that is absolutely true. But so let's define what ghosting means, right? And then be something that I always like to say a lot is be respectfully relentless in your follow-up. So always add a ton of value where you can, like based on their objections and what they're doing, but be absolutely relentless, because you took an hour or 2 out of your day and your time to give that quote. You at least deserve a response, yes or no.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And most people, if you go through all that process, they will give you the respect of a response. Couple other like sub tips that I just wrote down as I'm talking about that, so I didn't forget about them. Number 1 is never leave an estimate without the next meeting scheduled. Yep. Either a follow-up time scheduled or another time where you're going to come back and finish the proposal. Like if you're halfway through the estimate and the husband has to leave because he's got called into work or whatever, don't present the job to one decision maker, right? Reschedule that time where they can both be there and simply explain to them, look, painting can be a long and intimate process because there's so many variables. It's not like replacing a light fixture, right? So I want to make sure that we're on the same page, we have the same scope, the same understanding, we're talking about the same project. And for us to do that, we all have to be together. So when can you guys both be here and we can just go over it together, right? It's respect. It's not pushy sales.
100%.
That's number 1. Don't leave without a follow-up scheduled. The second one is like when they give you the, hey, we still need to talk about this, you can schedule that next follow-up, but you can also ask them, it's like, great, when do you guys have time to talk about this? Like, when do you think you're going to be able to talk about that? Like, are you going to talk about tonight? Like, do you guys have time tonight? Or do you have like kids events? Do you think you can talk about tomorrow before work? Like, just make sure that they actually have that time to speak, because you don't want to get to that follow-up the next day at 3 and be like, oh, we didn't have time, we were busy, right? It's like, oh, what happened last night? You said that you were going to do it, right? Just like help them logically think through it, because they might promise something but not think through what that actually means. Because I mean, we're both married, and for us to take time out of our days and our families and our activities and everything to talk about a specific thing, like it takes deliberate effort. It's not just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be really helpful.
Speaking of that, I just reminded that I forgot that I feel like what half my job as a salesperson ended up becoming was like a marriage counselor and just like helping people organize like their life. Anyways, I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, there's so much of it is just like helping them make this decision. Right?
Yep. Yeah. And then the last thing is, if you get the objection, similar to what we were talking about, like, hey, this sounds great, but like, we just want to like think about it. We want to like do a little more research, get a bit more information, right, before we make a decision. It's like, oh, that's actually super convenient, because like I am the source of information. You're not going to get more information than anyone but me, right? So what kind of questions do you have? And just like be like, hey, I'm right here right now. You guys need to talk about it for a minute. Like, do you mind? Like, I actually have a couple calls I have to make. I can just step outside for a few minutes, make a couple of calls, and like, will 10 minutes be enough time for you guys to talk about this? Like, what's wrong with that? It respects their time, because they don't need to do follow-up discussing it at the evening and taking up their personal time. and it respects your time because now you don't have to have another follow-up on your calendar. You can just deal with it. If it's a no, that's fine. Tell me it's a no. But if it's a yes and you're considering it, why don't we just do it now? Because I have all of the information and I'm right here right now. I am the source of truth.
So good. And the question you can do to open that up, right? When they say, if for whatever reason their objection is still, oh, we need to think about it, you just flip it on them and say, great, what do you need to think about?
Price is too high. We need to think about the price. We weren't thinking about spending that much.
Got it. How much were you guys thinking of spending?
We thought it was gonna be closer to 10,000, and this one's 19.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's a really big job. Is there areas that are more important than others for you?
I mean, we were really hoping to get the whole project done, but like, yeah, we really wanted the budget to be closer to 10.
Okay. You know, you want to keep going?
Yeah, let's do it. It's fun.
Okay.
I think this would be valuable.
Sure. Then I would say, you know, I got it. You know, it's a really big job.
Can you do it for any cheaper?
To do the quality that I know you guys expect based on our conversation, and to make sure we have full coverage on the walls because we are going a lighter color here, to absolutely deliver on what you guys expect, this is the best price I can do. And I already gave you guys a 5% discount to your previous clients as well. So I already factored that in. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it is more than I wanted to spend. I feel like we should get probably a couple other quotes.
Okay. Any other reason why other than money?
I mean, you did great presentation. You're really thorough, very professional, showed up right on time. But yeah, I'm wondering if someone else can get it done for a bit cheaper.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, you told me the timeline, get this done within the next 2 weeks was one of the most important things. Is that still a top priority?
Yeah, I mean, we have to get it done in 2 weeks because my daughter's getting married here the next week.
Okay. Again, we can get you in right now, but I need to know right now, if we wait another day or two, the odds that we can get it done by that timeline pretty much go away. So is that still the most important thing to you here?
Timeline is important. Do you have any other recommendations of painters who might be cheaper?
Personally, I don't have any recommendations, but would it be absolutely crazy to get you guys scheduled right now?
Honey, what do you think? Yeah, that was good. I think the important thing there is like you're not necessarily dealing with the objection. You're just like clarifying that, hey, it's a big job and it's important to you.
Yeah, 100%. I think that a lot of times people get too hung up on the words being the objection. I think one of the things that has served me really, really well in my sales career is understanding that the words are not the objection. It's what's underlying that, right? So they might say budget, but based on what I know about the customer and the customer's needs, like that's not their concern. I haven't covered something else. So I really want to uncover that. So I don't really need to speak about the budget that much, and get to the underlying issue there, right? And then we can keep going from there. But just remember that whatever someone says on the objection, it's usually not what it is, but where people go wrong in it is then they harp on that thing. So in that case, right, if someone said the budget, a lot of people there would have just stuck on the budget for way too long, right? Where I tried to spin them off and then go back to what's more important to them, which was the timeline because of the items that you listed there, right? So
I saw a really good Instagram short I shared with our sales team yesterday, and it was a guy did a really good, concise way of describing what sales is. In the first half of the sale, you are a therapist. And you're trying to figure out exactly what's important to them, why it matters, what their motivations for making a buying decision are, and really truly understanding that. Because when people are buying anything, also including painting, it's not like, yes, they want to get the colors changed, but they don't just want to do it to change the color. Like there's always going to be a fundamental underlying reason why they want to get their house painted. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing, once you do that and you discover what's important to them, you transition from therapist to teacher, right? And now you're teaching them about your process, about how you're going to be able to solve their problem. But it's important to know that at any given time, they only care about 10% of what you're selling, right? So that's why in the sales process, you ask about like, hey, what is important to you when hiring a painter? Is it, and they'll tell you, you don't pre-frame them, but it's like, is it job site cleanliness? Is it timeliness? Is it finished product? Is it customer service? Is it communication? Is it price? And like whatever it is, you figure that out, you write that down. And then during the teaching part of it, you focus in and you repeat what's important to them as many times as you can. If they told you they had a bad experience with a roofer because they left nails all over the yard and they hated it, they kept talking about that. Well, now for the next 30 minutes, while I'm doing my proposal, I'm just going to hammer on why job site cleanliness is so important to it. It's in its core in everything that we do. And it's just, even though it's going to sound repetitive to me, if I repeat job site cleanliness 100 times, it's going to sound like music to their ears because that's what they want to hear. They don't care about the type of paint you're using. They don't care about what time you start in the morning. They don't necessarily even care about your prep process. They just want to hear about job site cleanliness and the job will be done on time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So therapist, then teacher. Was there another step?
No.
Therapist. Okay, cool. I like that.
Therapist and teacher.
Okay.
But just teach them the 10% of your product that they are interested in.
You know, T squared. I would take it to actually team, you know, you want to put this on Turbo Boost, team Q, team to the power 3, team cubed, or T, right? Last T here would be team. Because can your team actually deliver on all those promises that you made? Like to the T, and like really hammer home those specific points. Because what happens if you do that, people will actually recommend you and you'll have word of mouth that will go like crazy. But what happens is a lot of the time is your team will do a okay or good job. Now they won't necessarily be a detractor, but they're not going to refer you out.
Yeah.
And so how do you have your team deliver that exceptional experience? And then that's actually the rocket fuel on these things, that if you can nail that sales part and then add that component to it, that's the rocket fuel here.
You know, that's one thing that we learned in the Skool games in December. It's like, it's easy to sell, but it's hard to fulfill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe next Brush Busters episode, you and I can talk about you know, an 11 out of 10 customer experience. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really good one. I love the sales one though. Like I feel like we could keep going here. I think this is probably very valuable for people to like break this down and implement each process of this. Because if you can improve your sales, just talk about the numbers real quick. If you do 200 quotes in a year, right, and you move your sales rate, the amount that you close, the number of jobs divided by the number of estimate, if you move it by 5%, you book an extra 10 jobs for the year at an average job size of $6,500. Just by moving that one metric, doing the same amount of work, you're going to book an extra $65,000, which will result in approximately $30,000 to $35,000 of gross profit for your business by moving that one metric. If you move it 10%, if you move it from 30% to 40%, right, that's 20 extra jobs times 6,500. Can't do live math that fast, but probably 130,000 give or take of extra revenue, $65,000 of profit, extra profit by moving this one metric, by just really being a professional at this in your sales process. And at the start of the episode, we talked about what it takes to be amazing at YouTube and 35-page briefs and whatnot.
Yeah.
How long, or like how detailed is every step of this, so that your toolkit in your estimate and sales process is so well thought out of, and you have all the tools to pull from. And then what you actually are is more like a sniper when you're there and understanding their needs, and then use that one specific tool to talk about that. But all the customers are different, so you have all these tools thought out beforehand, and then you can use them when appropriate. And that's how you become an absolute master salesperson and get your sales rate above 40% or higher.
You're absolutely right on all of that. Just the one little tweak that's very important. A 10% increase in your close rate going from 30% to 40% isn't 10% more sales. That's 33% more sales.
Yeah.
So if you can go from 30% to 40%, that adds a 33%. So if you close 100 jobs at 30%, that would be 133 jobs at 40%.
Yeah.
For the same amount of work.
Yeah. And then if you take that, and what are the top 3 ways that someone can increase their average job size?
Well, I mean, you only need one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just like, what is
the
one
number
way?
one?
What's the number one?
Always make an offer for them to buy something else. Mm-hmm. Give them the premium offer, add on the ceilings as an option, let them buy something. If you don't give them an offer to buy something else, they never will.
Yeah.
Give them the FU price, not the FU price, but like if you're selling them something for 10,000, give them the opportunity to buy 20,000, right? Even if 10% of people do, you'll increase your average job size by 10%.
Well, if you do 200 estimates in a year and you close 40% of them at 6,500, that's a $520,000 business, right? But if you close that same amount of jobs, or actually let's increase those numbers, right? So you increase it to 50% close rate on that, which is 100 jobs. And then you went from $6,500 to $7,500 in terms of your average job size. that $520,000 business becomes a $750,000 business by moving those two metrics alone.
Yeah.
That's a 50% increase. Oops. That's a 50% increase in growth from moving two numbers.
Yeah. And so that was your close rate and your LTV, right?
Yeah.
The next, and the one other critical number that we're not going to get into right now is going to be your lead conversion rate, right? Because that makes everything easier too. And so those three numbers equals a great sales machine.
So good. Well, I feel like we went really, really deep on this question today, rather than doing a bunch of questions and whatnot, which I think was kind of an interesting thing. So let's see how people.
Yeah.
Great, man. Well, that was fun. That was fun to go deep on one question. I think that we should try that more often. Just keep going and layering deeper.
We could have probably talked for 2 more hours on that one question.
I think so.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.